Guys, what's going on? Dr. Gonzo Boogie here again, back for another update video. This is going to be another quick update video. I only got 2 Blu-rays to show you guys in a small stack of 4 DVDs. But before I get going on that, just wanted to mention, feels good to be back in the driver's seat here, back in the Dr. Gonzo Boogie chair. If you guys have been keeping up with my recent updates, actually all of my update videos so far this year, I've been filming all of them on my DVD shelf, so I actually haven't been appearing in front of the camera myself at all this year. And the main reason for that is just I didn't have a good camera set up, but recently I picked up a smaller tripod and I got my camera set up on that, and it's basically back to normal, basically how it used to be when I used to shoot off my webcam. So I'm glad to have everything back to normal. And I guess that's about it. So let's get started on this update. And I'm going to start off with the Blu-rays. So first up here, we have picked this pack up at Walmart. This is the Mummy trilogy. This is actually a only at Walmart exclusive. So make sure you pick it up before it starts getting sold out and selling on eBay for twice the price or whatever. Sometimes with store exclusives happens, sometimes it doesn't, but actually Walmart had a few random store exclusives last time I was there, some DVDs and Blu-rays, but I thought this was one of the coolest things there. This is a 3-pack with all 3 of the Brendan Fraser Mummy movies that came out in the late 90s and early 2000s, and I'm a big fan of mummy movies. I love the Universal Monster mummy films with Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney Jr., and I'm also a big fan of the Hammer horror mummy films, but these mummy films I kind of just skipped over, I would say, even though these came out at the time I was a lot younger, but I just for some reason never had any interest in them because they seemed like they weren't horror movies, which they're not. They're really their own thing, I would say. But actually going back and giving these movies a second chance, especially the first one, I'm glad I did because I really enjoyed watching the first Mummy movie. It sort of reminded me of Army of Darkness, the way it blended horror, comedy, and action. And Army of Darkness came out just a few years before this. This came out in '99, and I think Army of Darkness came out in like '95, '96. I can't remember off the top of my head right now, but I really do feel like this movie was inspired off of Army of Darkness. It sort of reminds me of it, like how he's having sword fights with like mummy skeleton guys, even though this movie uses a lot of CGI. In Army of Darkness they used mainly practical effects. They still sort of reminded me of each other a little bit. And I thought the first Mummy movie was really good. I thought the special effects held up too. They didn't look that bad actually. And I had a lot of fun watching it, and I'm glad I picked this trilogy up. And this also, of course, comes with The Mummy Returns and the third Mummy movie, which I didn't even really knew existed. I always thought The Scorpion King was the third Mummy movie, which I also picked up. I'll be showing that in a second. But actually, there is a third Mummy movie that came out in like 2008. I probably heard of it when it was coming out around then, but I sort of forgot all about it. It's called the Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. Never seen that one, but I did, since I picked up this pack, I rewatched The Mummy, like I said, and I thought it was pretty good. Had a lot of fun watching it. And I rewatched The Mummy Returns, and The Mummy Returns didn't hold up so well. I actually, it sort of reminded me of Peter Jackson's King Kong movie, where there's a lot of stuff going on. The camera's always moving, people are running around, there's big music playing, big action adventure music playing in the background, things flying around, just CGI stuff blasting everywhere. And there's just so much going on that like I could barely pay attention to what was actually going on, which is the story. And with everything going on and everything just coming at your face, it's just almost so much to handle that I attempted to watch this movie twice, and both times I just started to lose interest, which is kind of what happens when I watch Peter Jackson's King Kong. Is not only is it a little bit a little bit longer than it needs to, but there's just way too many special effects scenes in The Mummy Returns, and the special effects do not hold up as well in this movie. In the first Mummy movie, they're actually not that bad, But in this one, I would say I would compare them to kind of like the special effects on like a straight to video DVD that you would find nowadays. And it really dates the movie, and it also makes the movie look cheaper than it actually is, because I'm sure tons of money were thrown into The Mummy Returns, and it's just doesn't really look too good, honestly. And I didn't really have a lot of fun watching the movie. I found the story to be a little bit confusing. The story in the first Mummy remake is a little bit confusing too, but basically the framework for it is a remake of the original Universal Monster Mummy movie with Boris Karloff, and I kind of like that about it. But The Mummy Returns is just a crazy film. Like, I don't even really know what is going on. I know Brandon Fraser's character and his wife or girlfriend are trying to save their son who was kidnapped, but other than that, it's really hard to follow that movie. The best part about it is probably The Rock in it as the Scorpion King, but he's only in the movie very briefly at the beginning of it, and at the end he's at it, but he's like a CGI scorpion monster, and it's kind of ridiculous. So The Mummy Returns, not as good, and I haven't watched The Mummy, The Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, but I'm actually looking forward to checking that one out because I'd never seen it or heard of it before. But like I mentioned, I did pick up The Scorpion King with The Rock, and I was a pretty big wrestling fan back in the late 90s into early 2000s, and The Rock was one of the best wrestlers of that time. He was just great on the mic, and he was just a great wrestler, and he just had some of the best matches of that era. And this movie came out in like 2002, and I remember they promoted the shit out of it on WWF at the time. And I remember they even made action figures based on the movie that were just like repaints of The Rock's WWF action figures. They just like put like a lump of hair on his head and added a few extra accessories. I always thought that was cool though. But I haven't gotten around to watching this yet. But this is a movie that I always wanted to see. I can't remember if I saw this one when I was younger. Just like with the other Mummy movies, I think I just completely passed on most of these, but I'm really looking forward to checking this one out now. I had a lot of fun watching the original, well, the Mummy remake with Brandon Fraser. Like I said, Mummy Returns not so good, so I'm hoping that this one will be good. But again, not sure, but really looking forward to watching this. Might even check this one out tonight or tomorrow or something like that. But alright, that was it for the Mummy films. So let's move on to the DVDs. So first off here, we have the remake of When a Stranger Calls, and I picked this up because recently I've kind of been into watching early late 90s and early 2000s horror movies, a lot of them being remakes, which is why I decided to check out the Mummy remake, was because I kind of been watching a lot of movies like that lately. And so I've been trying to pick up a lot of the early 2000s horror remakes that I never really gave a chance to. And I picked this up. I found it at a Big Lots, I think for just like $3, brand new. I was actually kind of happy I found it because I was looking for it. That's why I went there, and I was happy to find a copy there. And actually, I thought this was pretty good. I actually thought this was better than the original When a Stranger Calls movie, which I barely ever say that about remakes, that I like the remake better than the original. But I have a few problems with the original, which I've gone into on a few other videos before. Mainly is that everything iconic, everything well known about the movie happens within like the first 20 minutes, and the rest of the movie is just kind of boring after that. After that, you follow different characters, and they're just not the most interesting characters. And I remember I did a review sort of on the original When a Stranger Calls movie and its sequel, When a Stranger Calls Back. And I remember I said that I wish that they had just taken, because this movie is known for the babysitter urban legend where the babysitter starts getting obscene phone calls, and you find out that it's coming from a caller using another phone within the house. And that happens all at the very beginning of the original When a Stranger Calls, and the rest of the movie is kind of like a cop trying to chase down the serial killer like 10 years later for whatever reason. I can't remember. I think he breaks out of jail or something, like breaks out of the insane asylum, something like that. And I remember I said I really wish that they just took the babysitter part and stretched it out for the whole movie. I was like, with the right writer, you could make it work. And actually, what I like about this remake is that's what they did. They took the babysitter story and made that the full movie. Even though there's parts of this movie that I didn't really like too much, all around I actually enjoyed this movie a little bit more than I enjoyed the original one. But that's not to say this is a great remake in any sense. It's not like John Carpenter's The Thing or anything like that, because really this is a slow burner of a movie. Not too much happens, and there's not really that much of a payoff, but I still, for some reason, enjoyed it, and I would recommend it. When a Stranger Calls remake. So next up, I have another slasher horror movie remake from the early 2000s. This is Prom Night. Again, this is another remake that I had never seen, and the original Prom Night is another movie that I would say I have a few problems with. I actually like it. It's a fun, cheesy slasher movie. Cool to see Jamie Lee Curtis in another slasher movie too. But the thing about that movie, it's just a little bit too disco-y. I could tell that, I'm pretty sure that that movie with John Travolta, Saturday Night Fever, came out like right around the time that movie came in, because it almost seemed like they were trying to cash in on that more than they were trying to cash in on the slasher genre. And I would say I almost feel like the seriousness of the story gets distracted a little bit by all the disco-y stuff going on. But I do have a lot of fun watching the original Prom Night. But one thing that I would say, I like the original Prom Night more than this, but one thing that I would say that I think this movie did a little better is it doesn't have all that disco-y stuff that distracts you from the actual story. And I think the way they went with this one was a little bit better, where the killer in the movie is like an ex-boyfriend who's jealous, or an ex like weirdo dude in this movie, because I don't really think he's an ex-boyfriend. He's like an ex like stalker or something like that went to jail. Something weird. I don't think you would call that an ex-stalker, but you know what I mean. Someone who used to stalk the main character, but he got sent to jail, and he broke out of jail. And I actually think that's a better story than the original Prom Night. The original Prom Night has like a confusing story where these kids are like playing a game, and one of them falls out of a window, and it's kind of a strange story, honestly. And I feel like this movie kind of did more of a story that I would expect to be in like a movie called Prom Night. So this isn't too bad. I wouldn't say it's better or worse than the original one, but I would say I almost enjoyed it about the same. Alright, so let's move on. Actually, the last two things I have to show in this video, I picked both of these up at a Goodwill yesterday. Yesterday I went out and did a little bit of thrift store hunting. I also went to Target, which is when I picked up the Scorpion King. Picked this up yesterday at Target. Actually, when I got home with it, I noticed that there's like a huge rip in the side of the artwork, so I actually had to go back to Target and get another copy of this, which is always a pain in the ass. But I did stop at Goodwill while I was up doing all my random Target trips, and I picked up a few DVDs there. I actually found a couple cool things there. So let me show you guys what I found. First off, this is Wes Craven's Summer of Fear. This is a Wes Craven movie that I've never seen before and that I've barely ever heard about. If you guys have seen this movie and enjoy it or don't enjoy it, let me know in the comments, because really, this is a Wes Craven movie that I've barely heard anything about. This stars Linda Blair. Again, kind of weird, didn't know Wes Craven ever made a film with Linda Blair. I've definitely read about this movie before, but again, I think I just kind of forgot about it. But I think he made this movie in the late 70s, right after A Hills Have Eyes, and I think this was a made-for-TV movie, but again, could be wrong about that. But actually, this DVD is like out of print, sort of hard to find, and I saw people selling it on Amazon for like $40 brand new and like $15 used, and I picked this up at a Goodwill for $3. It was in pretty rough shape. It was in a case that was really dirty. I actually switched the case out with a spare DVD case I had laying around, and also the disc had some scuffs on it and I had some gunk over it, but I cleaned off the disc. I haven't tested it out to see if it works yet. The disc isn't that scratched up. It just has a few tiny little scuffs on it. So I'm probably going to check this one out in the next couple days just to see if the DVD works, and also I'm just really interested to check it out, because actually my two favorite Wes Craven movies are probably The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left, my third being Deadly Friend. Love that movie. And then probably after that, of course, Nightmare on Elm Street. But this came out right after Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left. Never seen it. Got Linda Blair in it. Really looking forward to checking this one out. And the last movie for this video is the Wishmaster 2-pack. I've actually never seen the Wishmaster films. They had this set brand new at Goodwill for $3, so I was like, might as well pick it up. Sometimes if I see horror movies that have like been questionable if I want to pick them up or not, if I see them brand new at a thrift store for $3, I'll pick them up. And like I said, I've been watching a lot of late 90s, early 2000s horror movies, so this kind of fits into that category. And I think this was actually I think Wes Craven was like the executive producer on this, so it's pretty cool that I found like two Wes Craven sort of films at the same thrift store, and they were both released by Artisan Home Entertainment. You guys can see the logo there. Probably not. I'm still trying to get used to the new camera setup, so it's, you know, I'm like a little confused exactly where to like hold things up good, but you know, I'll get better as I keep going on. But I've never seen these, and if you guys recommend these or anything like that, definitely let me know a little bit more about these in the comments. Even though I've seen reviews on these before and I've seen you guys talk about these before, these are movies that I've never seen, so I don't really know too much about them, but I'm really looking forward to checking them out. So alright guys, that was it for this update video. Like always, I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, definitely give this video a big thumbs up or leave a comment or subscribe if you haven't yet, and I'll see you guys next time.